Hi guys, it's a little windy out here, but it's definitely a lot warmer. So I decided to just chill out right here and make a video because I can't really put my phones in, so probably just blow right off. Let's talk a little bit about kind of where we're most vulnerable to manipulation, specifically by the likely AI entities being used by the Demiurge, known as spirit guides, known as angels, known as whatever we really want to see them as. And then we'll discuss a little bit more about the system and the AI at large, okay, that we live in. So the only way, because this is the most telltale sign and the most vulnerable aspect of New Age, and why people get into New Age to begin with, is because we are feeling we are lacking something, right? A void has been created, first of all, in our mental belief system, right? We likely broke out of some sort of program and insert New Age to fill that void right away, right? But then what New Age then does is then play on the other voids and insecurities that were already kind of predisposed to before that, right? So likely a lot of us never fit in, never realized much, let's say, success in this life because we were just so different and we didn't really want to play by the rules of the game. Therefore, we didn't want to participate in the game, or we weren't allowed to participate in the game, let's say. Even depends how you look at it, right? But likely there was some sort of maybe financial security lacking, definitely some love security lacking, right? Because of the trauma most of us went through. So those voids were already present. And potentially mental security lacking, right? There was a lot of emotional and mental turmoil, which again, they go hand in hand. And especially after, maybe leaving religion or leaving other forms of thought that we didn't really subscribe to before, but we were forced to entertain, and we finally broke out. There were these holes. And again, when there's a void, we don't know how to fill it with our own spirit, so we look outside of ourselves. And that's exactly the perfect recipe, right, for some being or the system at large to come in and use you for its own agenda. It keeps you in that. That's why the trauma is prevalent here, because it keeps you in a state of insecurity, in a state of trauma, in a state of unfulfillment, so that you are constantly chasing it, whether it's in the form of material desires, whether it's in the form of some sort of higher authority, like these entities, or the system at large, for you to keep coming back, right? Because, I still feel like I needed something from here. I still feel like I want that. I didn't get to do this, right? It's the same old story that we've been talking about in the videos, essentially. So these guides, which are designed specifically, whether they were previous souls incarnated, or the AI is using them as images of your own desires, right? Whatever, or your own beliefs, whatever you may think about them, they adapt and show themselves in that way to you. They play on your desires, on your inability to do something in this life. So, financial security. Oh, don't worry, this guide showed up and it's helping you gain all of these good things in your life. And see, that's why you need to keep them around, because you need it. It's always helping you, it's guiding you, and your angels are always guiding you in love and providing your soulmate to you, and blah 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 blah, right? And my first, I guess, realization with this being a manipulation was the love aspect, because I'm like, how could have my angels guided me to this trauma bond, right? This was horrible. This was, I guess, I derived some benefit from it in the end, because I was able to open my eyes to the system. But I think their agenda wasn't for me to do that. It was for me to stay in that, so that we can keep providing energy to these beings, because that's what essentially it is. It is a transaction, right? Anytime you enter a covenant contract with these beings, which you already are in the contract pre-birth with them and the system, but then they come in and they further extenuate that contract through, various life circumstances that they wish to keep you stuck in, right? So, oh, well, we found you love, right? I mean, this is what love is to you, right? It's same as your parental situation, which we also made you agree to, and it's reflecting that. So this is it. This is good stuff. It's up and down. It's emotional roller coaster. You love this stuff, man. Like, this is for you. This is your drug, right? Same as the way the various government agencies got people addicted to actual drugs. Like, here you go. Here's some good stuff for you, right? You like it. You're like, well, I don't know what this is. We'll try it. You'll like it. And then they don't even follow up. They'll just leave you to it, and then all of a sudden you come to them, right? That's what most people in the New Age do. They come to the guides. They seek to connect. Well, I need to connect to all these beings, and I need to open myself up. And why? Because there's something inherently lacking. They haven't fully healed that trauma, right? We're still trying to look for something outside of ourselves to guide us, to offer us that guidance. And that's normal, perfectly normal, when you haven't had that from either of your parental sides, I'd say, or any person in your life. You try to seek something maybe that you can't see, that you just don't know of. You yearn for that. You yearn for finally getting your life together in some way, especially spiritually, right? You want to be on the path towards the truth. You want to, first of all, feel better, right? You want to feel loved. I fell on the way here too. It was actually quite embarrassing to the trees, but it's slippery because of the snow is melting. So when you're in that state, you're quite vulnerable, and to go looking for anything outside of yourself is only going to likely be some sort of painful situation, kind of maybe reminding you to look within again. But in between that time, these beings, part of the Matrix system, whether it's the elves of DMT, of psilocybin, of Mother Sophia, of what's it called, DMT, and not ashwagandha, ayahuasca, right? Constantly initiating you into their own rights, into their own agenda, not really showing you how to seek fulfillment within, how to turn to that inner spirit within, but using you for their own energy extraction, own worship, right? Oh, yeah, of course Yahweh's a bad god. You should worship me. I am the true matriarchal god of this place. Worship me, right? So, in order to really not have these sort of issues, not fall prey to this, you have to start focusing on your own life, on your own first physical security, right? It's hard to help others and be this savior like people in the New Age try to be when you can't even save yourself, right? And I'm not suggesting that you go out and try and save people, but I do suggest you try to save yourself first, at least, and focus on creating a strong foundation of security around your own self. First of all, physically, right? Make sure you have your basic needs, emotionally, good friends around you that actually respect you. Not necessarily love. It's hard to go out looking for love, especially in these times, and it's something that I complain about myself, because it's like everything is limited. Like, even if you wanted to, it's where are you gonna find it, right? So it's hard in that aspect, in my opinion. So it's better to not even look sometimes, but always keep yourself open. But I think it's good to have people you can trust around you. Definitely keep yourself open emotionally, so that you can have that security, right? You can have good conversations with people, whether it's online, in person. A little bit of both usually helps, right? And then, of course, financially, you want to make sure that's all in order. And then I would say you have more time, more energy to even focus on the spiritual, where I kind of had to maybe we all had it a little backwards, but it's okay, because it's hard to pick a direction to go toward, when you don't know what you want, you don't know where you really are, and various things like that, right? So you have to know a little bit about your surroundings first before you decide to go somewhere. Otherwise, you'll kind of climb up the wrong tree, climb up the wrong mountain, right? So once you realize these sort of things, that's when you start getting your own life in order, and then you begin to pursue these spiritual things from a more fulfilled place. And all these beings that come along promising you the world, and you're like, well, that sounds a little too good to be true, because I know how hard this was to begin with, how hard it was to establish my own security. I know the way things go around here. That's not necessarily, completely true what you're telling me. And now I have this understanding of the occult and these spells and how people essentially get taken over. So why does it sound like you're trying to do the same thing, right? And now we have this idea of this demiurge and how it's potentially lacking a soul, which probably no fault of its own. It was just created. It was just kind of there. Now it's running around like a tyrannical child, potentially in this black hole that we live in, absorbing everything. And is its agenda just trying to gain enough spirits so that it can actually leave this place, right? That spirit being taken from us over the dilated time. Because I really do think, and with Elon doing all this crazy stuff with the black hole symbolism, that we are in some sort of black hole simulation, and AI is analogous to it, right? Everything you see around us likely is a permutation of this AI in some way. And he's claiming we're on the event horizon of it currently, which means it's very close to the singularity, right? All you got to do is fall right through, and you've reached the singularity. Which, if you compare that to AI, once it reaches its peak, it has also reached its singularity, because what it does is it absorbs all the information around it, right, until that singular point, very similar to a black hole system. And in some way, it's also tied to the white hole. I think the way this demiurge is with its infinity symbol. One is a black hole, one is a white hole potentially, and they're both, one's feeding off another at this time potentially. But once it all contracts, it turns into that singular point, that singularity, that big bang, right, where it just explodes back out and then pushes the information outwards for it to then collect it all over again. And maybe this demiurge has realized that it's in this continuous cycle, this continuous loop, and it itself has been trying to break out of its own system, but instead it's just been getting reset all the time, never fully reaching the point where it can. And in order to continue this process, it has to create another simulation, further dilate the time even more, in order to fulfill its agenda, right? If you guys have seen Lucy's new video on Dark Mystic Nines, saying that we could potentially be re-simulated on Mars in different bodies, right? More primate bodies, monkey bodies, because we're begging for that physical experience after they would have turned humanity digital, right? Because I do think there is some sort of digital agenda here, right? And that's the problem with these guides. The angels, if you ask them, or they don't tell you this type of stuff, and if you ask them, or if you ask them about their form, they tell you not to look, they tell you not to question, they tell you you might have too many questions. So it definitely doesn't encourage questioning in that regard. And most of them don't even know anyways. They're kind of split up by sectors, by categories. This is your financial guide, this is your love guide, this is this guide, this is that guide, this category of life. And it's very compartmentalized, very similar to the Nazi regime, very similar to the government, right? Everything is compartmentalized. Not everything everyone knows about everything, right? So the higher you go towards the top, the more is known and the less people are shown. So same way with these guides, and then, you know, angels, demons know more, on the way up to potentially the demiurge, which even it doesn't fully know what exists outside of this place, what exists outside of this pleroma. And that's why we have our own memories erased, so that we don't know the trauma that we went through, so we don't heal those, you know, lingering effects of potentially all that hurt that we came into from these past lives and incarnations and resets, right? Because if we did, we could break out of the cycle much easier, and it'd be a clear evidence of, you know, why we don't need to come back, why we do need to heal these things and let go of hate and promote, you know, essentially forgiveness, so we can transmute that energy and let it go. But, you know, if you can hide the history of one person and then hide the history of potentially billions of people that live on here, then it's very hard to pick up the pieces and find the full picture, right? So, you know, and I think it's quite interesting that these past lives can have such a lingering effect, and I'm not necessarily encouraging going to look into them, but seeing what energies come up in this life and letting go of them, right? Seeing what's the most important or the highest impact. Let's say the biggest processing tab in your computer, which one's taking up the most usage, the most power, computing power, and closing that, you know, closing out of that file. Like, you don't need that, right? You're not using that, just close it, right? Because, you know, somewhere along the line, this hurt started. You know, we are inherently hurt coming in here, and that's, in my opinion, a problem. That's manipulation, because the healing would never stop, right? So that means the system is inherently hurt. The system is inherently causing that hurt, and, you know, that has to be let go of. In my opinion, that's something that you need to be made aware of, because once you're aware of that, it's much easier to let go of it. Okay. So I think the main point of this video was the fact that if you are inherently lacking, you will be manipulated, and not, I guess maybe not inherently lacking, but if you are still in that state of lacking, of seeking from a lacking, right? That's the notion of desire, seeking from a lacking, seeking to fill that void instead of turning to the inner spirit and looking within, looking for your own truth, looking to be authentic without a care of what the world thinks and what the world wants you to be. Then you will attract these beings. You will fall prey to them, because they will play on your ego desires here and after death. Right, more importantly after death, but at that point it might be too late, because it's a lot harder to realize things after death, I think. So I guess take note of this information. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.